Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jason and I make posters. Recently, somebody asked me to make a video talking about where I get inspiration and how I face designer's block. I wanted to make sure that plenty of thought went into it, so I came up with 20 different ways to get inspiration. So let's go ahead and go through those now. All right, the first one is probably the most obvious. This one is going to be Pinterest. Pinterest really is a fantastic website to go to. One of the great things that I love about it is that it's not really social media. It's kind of like social media. You can follow people on there, you can interact with people, but it's mostly just looking at pins. And what's great about it is you can go on and find so many different styles, like more things than you could possibly ever imagine are on Pinterest. The thing that I love about Pinterest is if you're a poster designer, you can type in poster design and it will come up with so many different results than if you were to type in graphic design. So all of these different types of things right here. And then of course, one thing that I love about Pinterest, this is one of my favorite features. Clicking on one will bring up similar pins toward the bottom right here. So you can look all kinds of different things. Like if you're not careful, you can spend all day doing this. Same thing with logo design. If you type in logo design right here, like all of these different pins can come up, so you can just go in and grab inspiration. I'll show you the boards that I have here. I am by no means a Pinterest expert, but I do have things like, you know, a shopping list. I've got color palettes and cool posters and vintage concert posters, 90s graphic design stuff, Y2K, and you can just use your imagination. There's so many different things that you can grab on Pinterest. So that's what I would recommend. I would recommend starting with Pinterest, especially if you're a visual person and you need that inspiration right now. The second one is make things that are outside of your comfort zone. So things that you normally wouldn't do or things that you think that you can't do. What this will do is it will start challenging your mind, challenging your design skills. And the thing that I love about it is I love seeing something and then as I'm working through the process, thinking to myself, how am I going to achieve this? How am I going to do this effect, or how am I going to do this style, whether it's Illustrator or Photoshop? And making things that are outside of your own comfort zone, that will definitely inspire you, I guarantee it. The third one is making things that you don't like. So this is something that I try to do at least a couple of times a year. I'll go out and look for stuff. And the thing is, when you're stumbling upon design things all over the internet, you're going to come across something that you don't really like. So what I would say is whenever you see something that you don't like, try recreating it. And the reason why is because that may actually get you to think about different techniques, different processes that you can use in Illustrator and Photoshop, and then you can focus those techniques on things that you do like making. Number 4 is do exact replicas of things that you find. Now this does kind of tie into making things outside of your comfort zone and making things that you don't like, but if you see something that you think might be challenging, or even if it's something that you really like, do an exact replica, make it exactly the same, as close as you possibly can, because you never know what kind of techniques you will develop. So those 3 different things were kind of related to each other. So now we'll move on to something else. Number 5 is something that often gets overlooked, and it's look to the book. We designers spend so much time online that we often overlook books. And what's great about books is you can access information that is most likely not on the internet. This one is one of my favorites right here. This is the Designer's Dictionary of Type by Sean Adams. And what's great about this book is you can flip through and see so many different design styles. It's broken down by different typeface styles, so you can see so many different layouts and so many different examples of type. And one thing that I did last New Year's, we spent New Year's with some friends of ours. So I bought this book right before New Year's, and I took it with me, and I just sat probably the whole weekend just flipping through this book, making different notes, and I still haven't made my way through all of those notes and trying out different styles that I found in the book. So that's just one book. This is another one that I recommend by one of my design heroes, Aaron Draplin. So many different things to look at in here. I mean, this book is insanely chock full of stuff that you can just ooh and ah over. So definitely one of my inspirations when it comes to color. Highly recommend this one too, Steal Like an Artist. That's a fantastic one. One of my first design books that I ever bought was Logo Design Love by David Airy. This book is absolutely essential for print designers, grid systems. And then I found this one at a used bookstore. This is from the mid-90s, and don't overlook stuff that's older because you can actually get some interesting ideas from from even older design books, especially if that's the type of thing that you're going for. If you want to go truly vintage or retro, look and see what they were doing around that time period. One of my biggest pet peeves is when you look up 80s design and 90s design, what comes up typically is like a retro wave type of design. And it's interesting because I know what that is calling to. It's calling to, different neon signs and neon colors that were really prominent in the 80s and 90s. But that's not what actual graphic design looked like back then. You did see vibrant colors, but you saw a lot of sans serif typefaces. Not everything was in neon and everything in airbrush. So make sure that you're doing your research, especially if you're trying to nail like a retro time period or vintage time period or whatever it is. Books like this can really help with things like that. So definitely do not rule out books. Go to the library, go to a used bookstore. I'm not too far at all from Nashville. There's a place called McKay's. It's a used bookstore. They also have a bunch of movies and music and things like that. That's actually where I found this book, and they have an entire graphic design section. So if you have anything like that that's anywhere near you, I highly recommend going out to look at some books. All right, so number 6 is get outside. It doesn't just mean get outside in nature, although I highly recommend that. Go out and take some walks and just kind of unplug, get away from the screens and everything like that. But I'm also talking about specifically going to places. So one of the places that I love to go, there's an antique mall that's right down the street from me. So like antique stores, antique malls, anything at all that will give you some inspiration. For example, I went to the antique mall the other day and I found these really, really cool old medicine bottles from like the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they had the original labels on them. I mean, just amazing. It's really cool to see things like that because stuff like that inspires me. I love old typography and I love moving old typography into new typography. So whatever your design style is, check out antique malls if you're into older stuff. Also, flea markets are really good. You never know what you're gonna see walking from table to table and all of the different things that you can just pick up and draw inspiration from. So I highly recommend getting away from the computer, going out somewhere, and getting inspiration from the real world, from old items and new items. And 2 other things I'll add to that is grocery stores and yard sales. For me, I love going to the grocery store because I love seeing all of these logos all in one place, and you are going to come across something that you've never seen before every time you go to a grocery store. And even yard sales, that kind of harkens back to what I was saying about antique shows and antique malls, antique places, things like that. You never know what you're going to find at a yard sale. I actually found a coaster about a year ago. It was a little paper coaster, and the typography on it was awesome, and it was 50 cents. And I'm the kind of person that buys that kind of crap for that reason. So definitely get out of the house, away from the computer, and go look at real world things because you will get inspiration from looking at those things. Number 7 is to create your own style in a series of items. So if you are a print designer, put together your own aesthetic. And what I mean by that is put together your own assembly of fonts, design elements, things like that. I'll show you one that I'm working on right now. So if you look at this wall behind me, this is full of all these different promo posters from my favorite albums. So when I was trying to decide what to do with that wall back there, I measured it and did all this stuff and everything, and I discovered that I wanted music promotional posters back there. However, I have right above my head the same exact wall, just on the other side of the room. So what I'm working on right now is stuff like this. So this is all clearly inspired by Alan Ruppersberg. However, right now I'm actually working on making it my own style. I'm trying to get a sense of how he does things so I can change it up and make it my own because I love these colors. So figuring out what kind of style and what kind of colors and elements that you want to do, what I would say is develop a style in a series of items. So whether that's a series of posters, series of artworks, whatever it is, develop a style and just limit it to that series. Your brain will work in a different way than it normally does when you're doing something like that, when you're limiting those elements and colors to just that series of items. Number 8 is create what you want to see. So one of my favorite artists is Enigma. I don't know if you've ever listened to Enigma before, but if you haven't and you're not familiar, I highly recommend it. Enigma is a one-man band and he does all of the music, does absolutely everything that there is. He's also inspired a ton of other musicians to do the same thing. And what's really cool is I remember reading in an interview with him where they said, where does this music come from? And I remember he said, I create the music that I hear in my head. Like I create the music that I want to hear. I didn't hear that from anyone else, so I just made it myself. So while you're going through Pinterest, going through the real world, seeing all of these different things, if there's something that you don't see, then just go make it. And you can use pieces from here, pieces from there, this thing that you saw at an antique mall, this thing that you saw at a yard sale, this thing that you saw on the side of a barn. Just bring them all together in something that's brand new. Number 9 is specifically for logo designers, and that's designing for products as practice. And what I mean by that is I myself am a logo designer. So we get locked into this box where we create a logo for white backgrounds only. So what I would say is when you're putting together a logo, think about all of the different things that logo is going to appear on, not just screens. We're talking things like, if it's a shoe company, it's going to go on a shoe. If it's a soda company like Pepsi or Coke or something like that, there's an endless amount of things that logo is going to go on. So I would say to make sure that you are very careful in how you're designing the logo for all of the different things, all of the possible different things that a logo is going to go on. The old rule used to be is that you could scale it down to the size of a stamp. And I still think that's a very valuable rule to follow. However, we are now in the digital age, and we have been for a while, but this is a new form of the digital age where your logo and also variations of your logo are going to appear in so many, like endless different types of medium. So just make sure that you are always doing that. And what I would say is design for products, not for just a white background. All right, number 10 is for print designers, and that is visit a printing shop. So I don't really get to do a lot of print shop visits, but when I do, they are so much fun. Don't be afraid to go in and talk to them because they love talking about their craft because it is a craft. There is a massive difference between 4-color process printing and digital printing. So go in there and talk about stuff, and if they're nice, they will show you some things that you've never seen before. Different styles of printing, and they'll also show you how to do these different styles of printing. From my experience, I have visited a lot of printing shops because I'm not far from Nashville. And I have always found that if you go in, you're nice and you smile and you talk with them and show interest in what they do, they will take you around and they will show you their entire shop. And almost always there's stuff all over the walls that you can draw inspiration from because they like to show off the things that they print. So if you've never visited a print shop, highly recommend it. So number 11 can apply to any designer, and that is experiment with colors that you normally don't use, / starting with a limited color palette and then designing from that. I wanted to combine these two because they both have to do with color palettes. So if you normally like to design with red, blue, yellow, things like that, then design your next project, whatever it is, with brown, teal, yellow, lime green, or like a chartreuse color or something like that. Color changes everything. And when you work with colors that you normally don't work with, you may actually find that you enjoy working with some of those colors. And even if you don't enjoy working with some of those colors, you're going to have to eventually. Whether you're working with clients at a company or a firm, or even if you're doing freelancing or something like that, you are going to get someone whose brand colors are brown and teal or whatever they are. And if you go ahead and work with colors that you normally don't like, you may actually find some techniques and tricks for when you do have to work with those colors. And then as far as working with color palettes, I would say choose a color palette of 3 to 5 colors and then build your project based on those colors. Don't cheat like I've done and add more colors to it. Limiting yourself to a certain amount of colors can really help you strengthen your design skills. All right, number 12 is also for all designers. Sketch before going to the computer. So this is something that all of your college professors used to tell you, and if you're in design school right now, you will hear it at some point. This is one that I struggle with a lot, and I love going straight to the computer. However, I will say that when it's just you, a marker or a pencil, and a sheet of paper, you can jot out so many different ideas before you even get to the computer. Now, I would also argue that you can also jot out some ideas when you're on the computer, so it really just kind of depends. But if you're a pencil and pad person, definitely start on paper first before you go to the computer, and you'll be surprised at the results. All right, number 13 is also for all designers. Watch design-related documentaries. There's a series on Netflix, I'm pretty sure it's still there, it's called Abstract. And several of those episodes are actually graphic design related. There's an episode on typography, there's one on product design, there's one on graphic design. Go through there and watch as much as you possibly can. Also, one of my favorite documentaries is Helvetica. It's rarely available on streaming, but if you ever get a chance to watch it, definitely watch that because Helvetica, most popular graphic design font of all time. All right, number 14 is research graphic design giants. Check out people and watch videos from people like Michael Beirut, Paula Scher, Aaron Draplin, and David Airy. And there's a lot of other ones too, so go out and check those out. It's amazing the types of things that you will learn from these people. About 2 years ago, I watched one Michael Beirut video and was inspired for 6 months. So those people that I mentioned, most of them have books, and you can also just Google famous graphic designers and just see what they have to say. A lot of them have videos on YouTube. They showcase their work and all of these different things that they've done for all these companies. Go and learn from them. Number 15 is something that we can all do regardless of your age, and that is pull from your childhood. This is something that I've been doing in design for a long time because I owe my design career to 90s Nickelodeon. Not just in the logo and the branding, which is amazing by the way, but in all of the graphics that they put in between the actual shows. So those are called the bumpers. And they had all of these different types of styles and graphics and things that I just loved looking at when I was a kid back in the early 90s. Aaron Draplin also does this same thing. What he does is he pulls from all of these different products and typography that he saw as a kid. If you've ever looked at any of his badge designs, the typography and the colors and the thick lines that he uses, he says that those are all from products and things that he saw when he was a kid. And here's something that I put together probably about 10 years ago, and it's just primary colors of the 90s, and it's based on these 4 colors, which is actually feeding in to the poster wall that I'm working on right now. I'm actually working on kind of combining this style with this style and just trying to figure out exactly what I'm gonna do with it. But I did stuff like this where I did like the I don't know from You Can't Do That on Television, and I added in these little splotches right here. Of course, it doesn't work for everything that you're doing, but it works for something like this. And then something like this right here, it doesn't have the splotches, but the skate, surf, and blade, you know, I actually did bring in the blue, but I am planning on ditching the blue. And then I also remember these Pop-Tarts packages from when I was a kid, so I just kind of did this thing where it's like, keep calm and have some Pop-Tarts. You know, this was probably 10 years ago when the whole keep calm thing was going on. But as you can see, like I took that idea and I changed the typography to the actual one that they used on the Pop-Tarts box, introduced a couple of little design elements that I enjoy working with and things like that. So I highly recommend pulling from your childhood. I actually have a theory. I think that every designer is a designer because of things that they were influenced by in their childhood. So there's a lot of different things that you can actually pull from as inspiration and just figure out what that means for you, and then just put together stuff based on what you saw when you were a kid. All right, number 16 applies to everybody, even if you're not a designer, and that is set your workspace. Decorate with the things that you love to see and what inspires you. So you can see these posters behind me, but what you can't see are these little prints that I have off to the side. So I've got an Apple computer ad right here. I also have the Say Hello to iPod ad, the original one, and then also the original iMac ad. When you're putting together your workspace, don't be intimidated by the things that you see people posting online. People have some incredible workspaces. Don't be intimidated by them, be inspired by them. And at the end of the day, put together a workspace that you enjoy, surrounded by things that you know are going to inspire you. I'm a person who's never satisfied with my workspace, so I'm always changing things around, but I try to do it on small scales rather than large ones. All right, number 17 can also apply to anybody, and that is listen to music. In our industry, it's very common to walk past someone's desk and see them wearing headphones. They're probably listening to music. And music can inspire us on so many different levels. I mentioned Enigma earlier, and right here in this folder is all stuff that is just inspired by Enigma. So this is a print series inspired by all kinds of different music, songs, and everything just from Enigma. And all of these are composites and photo manipulations of different things. So here's one, and then here's another one right here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. So basically just taking some images and just blending them together, bringing in some gradients and things like that. This one right here is one of my favorites. It was originally flipped and she was actually underwater and upside down, but I just flipped it and it made it look like she was falling into the fire. It was inspired by Enigma album's The Fall of a Rebel Angel. And here's another fun little one that I put together, just compositing different images together. And I think all of these images were actually found on either Unsplash or Pexels or like a free site like that. So don't underestimate the power of how music can inspire you to create art. Music is not just inspiration for other musicians. Artists can use it as well. All right, number 18 also can apply to everybody, and that is going to conferences and meetups. So a few years ago, I went to an artist meetup, and it was really cool because I got to talk with all kinds of different designers, artists, and everything. And it's amazing what you can learn and how you can even collaborate with people while you're there working on little projects. The one that I went to had a print designer, a web designer, and an artist, and we all just kind of worked together and created something, you know, like a little brand or something like that. Obviously, it wasn't for anything that we were being graded on or anything like that. It was purely just for fun. But it's amazing what you can learn by meeting up with other designers. And if you can't do it in person, then I don't know, reach out to somebody online. Would you mind doing a Zoom meeting or something like that, like a little 10-minute meetup or something? You know, there are a lot of people out there who will say no, but there are a lot of people who will say yes. So it's just amazing what you can learn and just pick from other people's brains, whether they're designers, artists, or even if they're not designers or artists, you can learn from everybody. All right, number 19 will seem a little bit counterintuitive, but just kind of stick with me on this. And that is watch non-design related stuff. Things like shows, movies that have nothing at all to do with graphic design. This has a two-pronged effect. One, it allows you to kind of unplug and, you know, just kind of get away from the work aspect of design. But two, you never know what you're going to see in that show or movie. While you're being unplugged and relaxing and not thinking about design, we're still designers at the end of the day. So we're going to see something that inspires us. And that also applies to anything beyond TVs and movie. You know, go read books that are not design related. I read Odyssey by John Scully a few years ago, and it's amazing what I was inspired by just from that. You know, some design stuff and some non-design stuff. So get outside of your field when it comes to entertainment and books and things like that, and you never know what could possibly inspire you and what you could learn. All right, number 20, and this really ties in with what I do, go to a record store. I know there are not a whole lot of them left, but if you have a local record store, go down there and look at album artwork. Whether it's 1920s, 1950s, 1970s, 80s, 90s, or even today, there's all kinds of artwork in a record store, and you can pull so much inspiration from this. If you don't have a record store, go to Goodwill. They almost always will have a record section. You can just flip through those records and look through stuff. Even if you're not looking at records, there's a ton of stuff to look at Goodwill. Just flip through stuff, and if there's a big pile of crap, see what's in that pile of crap and go over there and check out what you can see, because you never know if you're going to see something that's going to inspire you to create a font or a poster or a logo or whatever it is. You never know. You could be in Goodwill and see that one thing that is going to inspire you to create whatever you're trying to create. I got off on a little bit of a Goodwill tangent there. Let me go back to the record store. So in a record store, there's all kinds of different artwork and all kinds of different things to see. They've got posters on the wall. Go in there and just be inspired. And you'll also be listening to music at the same time. So that's my 20 ways of staying inspired as a designer, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching today. If you have anything to add to this, anything that you feel I didn't cover, then please drop a comment below, and I would love to hear what you have to say. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, and click the bell for notifications to be notified of all new content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.